So I'm Morgan Moran. I am in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I am a funeral director apprentice would be my official title.
I am from Springfield, Massachusetts, and been living here off and on for about 5 years since I moved back from San Diego. I work in insurance, and it's a lot more interesting and fun than people kind of assume when you're an insurance representative, because it kind of dovetails into my interest in the paranormal, because you get to ask people lots of great questions and really nosy, and you get paid for it. I'm not married, no children, so I'm kind of an independent free spirit, kind of do things on my own. So I've always liked to do that. So.
I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is Spook Central. The one cool way you're going to know it's Spook Central is if you live here and you're familiar with the city's dark history. A lot happened here when Halifax was, just starting out as a city. So, I love it here. And, that pandemic didn't stop me from loving this city. Nothing's going to stop me from loving this city.
I've always been fascinated by death and death ritual, and I always thought I was kind of just a creeper. I've always had, death books, cadaver books, like the interesting lives, the secret lives of cadavers. I've always thought body farms are cool, but I've always just kind of kept that to myself. And I think with like the rise of everyone being obsessed with true crime and not being ashamed of it, like that's a happening Friday night. It's just to watch that in my sweats. I think like that made it more acceptable to talk about. And I think during a particularly trying day during COVID at my current job, I just was like, you know what, life is really short and I want to do something meaningful and I don't care if this is weird. And then I realized by exposing myself to it, I'm like, this isn't weird at all. This is wonderful. And I feel like everyone needs to kind of just throw themselves in front of death and just normalize it. So that's my meet cute.
The origin story is kind of two parts. So when I was about 13, my mother told us a story about her best friend, really good, close friend in the family. We called her, was to us. And Aunt Claire was an interior designer. She was her own woman. Like in the 70s, that was pretty something, to have your own company. And she basically was one of those people that called a spade, very straight shooting, very honest individual. And she said, Aunt Claire has a poltergeist in her house. And I thought, well, that was interesting. A little bit more of the story as my mom told us over dinner that night, that she had brought in a few pieces for a client from an estate sale. And one night, things just started going crazy. She would go into her bedroom and see that the drawers of one of her dresser were like opening, and it looked like someone was like rummaging through her stuff. So this was going on for a few months, and it usually happened when Aunt Claire was not in her bedroom. She would just walk in while this was happening. To make it even more interesting, at the same time that she got these pieces from an estate sale, a very good friend of her mother's had passed away, and Aunt Claire and her mother had a very contentious relationship. There was an issue with a missing piece of jewelry that this friend that recently passed was trying to press Aunt Claire looking for. So that could have been ghost of the friend. We don't know. To this day, until Aunt Claire passed away like 20 years ago, she never figured it out. But what made it so interesting is that one night when Claire was trying to get ready to go to bed, and she's sitting there in her chair next to the bed smoking her unfiltered Pall Malls, she just got really sick of it one night and said, you know what? Enough is enough. Just stop it right now. And it stopped. It never happened again. So this is a haunting in a suburb of Springfield in this 1970s type brick style ranch house. It's not a haunted mansion. It's not a castle. It's not like something from like Night Stalker or from Unsolved Mysteries. This is just 2 blocks down my street in a boring part of Western Massachusetts. And I thought, my God, how cool is that? Ghosts happen everywhere. And not only that, but you can control the situation. You don't have to be this victim, like running from the room and going, oh no. Aunt Claire, she was a strong lady. And she said, like, you know what? I'm not having any more of this. And it stopped. So, I mean, she was my hero. And then the second part, I moved to San Diego in 2003. And just by a series of coincidences, I was working for my boss when I was working at a casino. And I met her boyfriend at the time, worked at the USS Midway, excuse me, which is this very, very haunted ship off the coast of San Diego. And he was the collections manager. So when you go on the ship, you see all the airplanes and the helicopters on the deck. He was responsible for researching and procuring those planes and helicopters. So he was like really enmeshed in the history of the Midway. He worked really deep in the bowels of the ship. And he told me one day, told me during the party, excuse me, it's haunted. And so we got into a really good conversation about ghosts and the possibilities of being attached to certain things or like unfinished business. And about 6 months afterwards, he broke up with his girlfriend. He and I hooked up, and we started this meetup called San Diego Ghost and Paranormal Research Group, which is the largest meetup in California for paranormal research and activities. So we kind of helped each other on this journey of exploring the paranormal and sharing it with other people. So that's when I became part of like professional investigation groups and wanting to start writing. So it's all because of that meeting Dave at a birthday party.
I was standing in this room at where was I? Oh, this is when I lived with my mom on William Street. And I was in the kitchen washing dishes, and my brother and my mom are in the room. And all of a sudden, I had this premonitional feeling, like someone hit me in the gut, and I had a vision. And like I have been a witch ever since, but I didn't know it then. And this was sort of my awakening. And this is what got me started. And I saw like my brother's friend, and he was suffering and he was in pain. I didn't know I was picking up on his pain. He was in terrible pain. And so he came up 15 minutes later, and I'm telling you, I didn't know how I knew what I knew. I just knew. It was intuition, right? And he had kidney failure, and he's been dialysis for years, and he passed. But that night I was like, oh my God, something's wrong. So they took him to the hospital and got him checked out. And so that I didn't understand then, but it's been many years and I understand now. And so now I was like, oh my God, I met other people who were into this witch coven, and they knew what I'd experienced. And that's what kind of got me started. And I also find the occult and paranormal absolutely fascinating. So I even took an online how to be a paranormal investigator course and read books.
My whole thing, I kind of lovingly call it death snacks. They're like tiny little morsels that you can chew on, but to just kind of make you think about life and death. And it's all about normalizing death and also kind of looking at it in different ways, kind of peeling back the curtain of what we can learn about it before it's like, hello, it's here for you. So, and I think there's beautiful things to learn. There's kind of horrifying things to learn, but it kind of helps you live a truer life. There's humor, there's wonder. And I think it's just kind of sharing those little pearls of death wisdom just to kind of make people feel like, all right, I know how to kind of live now, and I'm not afraid anymore. And that's what it's all about. Just kind of, yeah, normalizing the whole beautiful thing.
Soul Sisters is about the connections between these two seemingly unrelated cold cases that are about a century apart. The first event happened in San Diego in the late 1800s. It's like teen-ish. And this is an infamous case related to a woman named Kate Morgan. Never been solved. To this day, people are still writing and saying, no, that's not her name. She was this individual. No, it wasn't her. It was this person instead. And there's all these very, very weird, bizarre things that led to be a cold case. Like, no one claimed the body. Even though everyone's saying that she was someone else, ultimately, she ended up being, unclaimed and buried, in a pauper's grave in San Diego. To this day, we really don't know who she is. She checked in on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, and the last time anyone saw her was November 29th, 5 days later when they found her body. Fast forward into the 1970s, and basically a woman who looked very Morgan, that was her name, checked into a hotel in Norway, November 24th. Last time she was found or seen was on November 29th when her body was found. Both were supposed to be suicides, but everything that was discovered for both of these cases, that there was no way these two women committed suicide. Even I, who am not, I don't even watch crime shows or whodunits, even I know that the facts related to the deaths of these two people, no way they could be suicides. Anyone who reads Encyclopedia Brown when they're like 8 years old knows that there's no way that these two deaths were due to suicide. So it just made me kind of think, well, they looked alike. They had the same dates in common, both seen around hotel history. The one from Norway, nobody still to this day knows her real name. And it made me think, well, what if they were linked? What if we get to do it over again and over again until we get it right? And maybe this was one of this soul's attempts to have another go at it, and once again she failed. So it's very intriguing. A lot of people there's not a lot out there about reincarnation and ghosts, or like the intersection of it. So I thought it was fascinating to just make that supposition.
And the Halifax explosion, where two ships collided in the harbor, and it was a huge tragedy. All these people were killed, and there was a huge explosion. Halifax was decimated. This is around the time of the Titanic. The Titanic victims were brought here, and they had all these bodies. They would bring, they were brought to the funeral home, and then, of course, they took care of them, and there was probably funerals and everything.
I think to not be afraid of reinvention. I think to not let age get in the way. I'm not old by any means, but I'm definitely, getting into the upper limits of my young professionalism. And I just kind of started over. I took a $60,000 a year pay cut. I don't know anything. And I'm just like, you know what, F it. I just want to experience something new. And I think to not be afraid of that. I think if you're going into like even a male dominated field, to not care and look for the women, because they are there and they will support you and they will hold you close and they will tell you all the wonderful truths that you need to make you feel more comfortable. I think it's just, it's a wonderful time to be a woman. You know, we can, you know, speak our truth, we can live our truth. And I think to just boldly go and to not let knowledge, skills, experience, age, any of that hold you back. Just try it and don't be afraid of trying something new, and don't be afraid to fail, because there's beauty in that too. So.
Lori Cabot, that was from Salem. Patty Nedry, she's really awesome. Well, Zach Pagan, he's just so fearless and confident. But I think those are qualities you have to have if you're going to get into this.
I think I have like a unique place because I'm not a technical person. I'm not a medium. I'm slightly clairaudient. And usually when you're part of a team, the roles are somewhat relegated. I think not consciously, but they are kind of relegated by gender. You know, there's always going to be an exception. The two teams that I belong to were headed by very strong individuals, and the mediums actually were men. So, I mean, that's a twist, but I'm neither. You know, I'm not a tech person. I am not very sensitive, although sometimes my clairaudient abilities help with EVPs. That's basically my strong suit. I mean, I've gotten some class A amazing EVPs, but I think the way that I come into play is that I'm the middle of 9 kids, and I've always been someone who has been on the outside looking in. Because my siblings that were older were at least 4 years older. My younger siblings are at least 4 years younger. So I've always been on my own growing up. So it comes, my strength is to do research, to find out all these hidden connections, to be looking at all these potential things that they as mediums and tech support people really are not seeing just yet. And giving a voice to that woman who kind of comes, and also as a woman, we have to give voice for the people who don't have a voice anymore. I mean, to draw a connection between these two women and their untimely deaths and how they were unfairly like relegated to a pauper's grave because no one was paying attention. A lot of women are victims, and people just go, "Meh, who cares?" And that happens time and time again when it comes to researching cases in which there's a death or there has been an unsolved crime when it comes to a woman, and a ghost is still trying to get satisfaction. And so I think that's how I kind of fit in. It's like I want to hear their particular voices. I mean, women are just always silenced. We're always just ignored and shunted off to the side. And I know how that feels.
So, I mean, there's my blog that I'm constantly populating, and that's Call Me Morg, and that's at morganmoran.com. So that's kind of my main thing right now. I'm not looking to get like followers. My only hope for all of this, I'm not looking for a book deal. It's just like be a little more comfy with death, and, you know, live a little more intentionally, and don't have as much baggage or pettiness in your life, and boom, life is beautiful suddenly. So yeah, it's kind of a no regrets kind of a thing. So that's kind of my project right now.
Specific I want to plug, but I know that when I first started out in San Diego, a really, really big help for me to understand paranormal and reach out and connect with people was through meetups. You don't have to belong to a team. Everyone thinks that you have to be part of a paranormal research group to have a full understanding of the phenomenon, and you don't. Just look in your community. Just go into meetup.com and look for a paranormal group. I used to have a meetup called Fork, Knife, and Spook. And it is about going to haunted restaurants and bars. We don't do an investigation. We just sit down with a bunch of other people and have a good time. We have a great meal, drinks. We speak to the staff about all of the events that happened in their haunted location where they're working. They have any issues with the ghost? What have they heard? What have they seen from other people? And it was a great way of getting like a backstory or fully understanding what it is to deal with paranormal outside of, you know, part of the paranormal research team. It's really fun. You get to hear other people's stories and share. So yeah, look for a meetup. Just go on and try to find the beauty to have these same stories and same concerns. It gives, I think, a more well-rounded idea than what you see on TV.
Well, I'm on Facebook, and yeah, it can be found on Facebook and on Twitter at Magica66. That's magic with a K, Magica66. And I have a blog, The Paranormal Quill, on WordPress.